There's one who knows the truth. A warrior that destroys civilizations. A rider that can avenge the fallen. One who will remind the guilty what starts with war ends with death.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Today we've just had the presentation, loved it. What we'll discuss about to begin with is the character of death. Obviously enough, there's that many different interpretations of death out there. How do you make death your own?
Well, so, what's funny about when we designed Death is, in the first game, we knew the character was going to be War, and then just so we would have an idea what the other four horsemen would look like, Joe did some sketches, one of Death, and then instead of Famine and Pestilence, we went with Strife and Fury, because Famine seemed boring, like, you're hungry, it's not exciting. But anyway, so we had these sketches. So when we're starting Darksiders II, we're like, okay, let's see think about what Death's going to look like. Went through every iteration you can think of, kind of that traditional Grim Reaper kind of look. I think there's one where Death had 4 arms, just anything went. And after all that work we did, it all went back to that original sketch that Joe did just as a one-off for Darksiders 1. So I'd like to say that we have this really, this is the reason why, and here's this. The only really thing that we liked about Death and we wanted to keep to make sure was the mask, because in the fiction, Death and the other horsemen were responsible for a great wrong, and Death always wore that as kind of an executioner's hood, like he feels like it's guilty, so that mask represents his guilt that he always wears. But the other design work was just kind of that's the coolest looking one we have, let's stick with that.
I guess I talked to Joe come preview sessions for the original game, and obviously I already came up at that point about, okay, 4 horsemen, this is obviously open for sequels and stuff, and obviously if you're waiting to see how the first one does, it does fantastically well, so sequel's greenlit. But did that give you almost like a comfort zone where you had a sort of rough idea even before you guys decided to do the sequel, that if we do a sequel, we've got certain elements in place that we know we can carry on?
Yeah, so like I said, the Darksiders 1 was our first game as a studio, and that's risky enough. A new IP from a new studio, a game no one's ever heard of, that's risk enough. But we had this, we knew we wanted to kind of make this game that combined combat, puzzle solving, exploration, and it was hard to encapsulate. It's not something you can just say in a sentence and people are like, I got it. So we always were worried that was the biggest risk. It's not something that's easily digestible. So, but when the first one was a success, that made us feel great, because we're like, okay, the game we loved, the game we want to play, is the game that the fans want to play too, so it works. So it allowed us to kind of, in Darksiders 2, to take even more chances. Same basic formula, but we realized, if it's something that we like, we're obviously on the right track here. So it allowed us to take more chances. I think you saw, we kind of added, like I was talking about the stuff that got left on the cutting room floor for Darksiders 1, we ran out of time. But if it hadn't been such success, we would have said, all right, maybe we have to change stuff or rethink some of our design philosophies. But no, it's what Darksiders 1 proved to us is it's okay to let players think for a little while. It's okay if, I don't want to call it frustration, but if it takes a few seconds to figure it out, that's cool, because when you do figure it out, it'll be that much more satisfying in the end.
That's the nice thing about the puzzle elements for any particular platformer or action game, that you guys can it would feel far too constrained and too linear that it's basically you're on rails all the way through. And talking about, you mentioned about the cutting room floor stuff. Obviously, if you run out of time with the original Darksiders, you had all this great content you still want to expand on. And what was that exactly? Was that particular levels, particular pieces of the world?
Yeah, so I'm sure this happens with every game. You have anybody can have 100 ideas, but when it comes down to really making it, you have to say to yourself, all right, this is, what we really have to make. And when you make a game, and especially it was our first game, we had to work on the engine. There's a lot of kind of feeling out what works and what doesn't work. That is just, it's time that doesn't necessarily end up in the final game. So yeah, Darksiders 1, it gets to a point where you say, okay, what can we do? What are we leaving behind? And there was a lot of stuff we left behind. So with Darksiders 2, you know, we didn't have to do a lot of that preliminary work. So we got to put, you know, it's Darksiders 2 team is, I'd say, 90% of the same people that worked on the first game, plus more heads brought on to help us out and make a bigger, better game. So a lot of the bigger ideas that we said, man, you know, the real disappointments that you couldn't fit into Darksiders 1, and we're like, let's do that. So in this case, it's you go up levels, get experience, the loot drops, you know, the random equipment that you're constantly getting and upgrading your character with, the skill trees. That's all stuff that was for Darksiders 1. You know, God, wish we could have done it, but we couldn't. And now it's kind of like, it's awesome. It's super fun for the team to be able to realize the original goal.
Well, with using a different character, going from war to death, obviously enough the play style is slightly different. We're sort of discussing it there. Does that mean then, obviously there's various elements that are the same and are carried over, are very similar from the first one. Do you guys have to reapproach certain areas because of this different play style with the character?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where we knew we wanted death to be different from war, because what's the fun if you're making a different character and they're basically the same? So, you know, war is slow, death is fast. War is like a heavy weapon, strike guy, death's a dodge in and out kind of guy. So, and the other one is death can kind of leap and crawl and get up to higher places. So a lot of our design was revolved around death, where we made the character, and then our level designers were like, oh, you know, now levels don't have to just be on this flat plane. Now we can go up and down because he has a lot more vertical movement and stuff like that. So you make the character first, and then you design the world around the characters. There's some things where we just did because you know, we have more open world environments, and that's just something we wanted to do because, like, the first game, people were like, you're a horseman of the apocalypse and you spent half the game without your horse. What's that about? And we're like, yeah, that's a good point. I guess we thought, but so, you know, we knew we were going to do that and have the horse available right away just to make it more palatable for the guys. But a lot of the stuff just comes out of, like you were saying, the new character drives design.
And where are you guys in development at the moment? Obviously, enough you're talking during the presentation about you've got the hands-off demo, you've got the hands-on demo, but where are you guys currently? Are you nearly finished? Does that distant horizon just look too far away?
Well, to give you an idea where we're at, we're at that point where you're working 6 or 7 hours a day, 12 to 14 hours a day, like that final, like, get all the content in, finish it up. So this build I brought here, I was, I need to go. I need to get on a plane. And they're like fixing it down to the wire, just like squeezing everything in. So, I mean, yeah, we're getting to that point, finalizing it, getting all the bugs out of it and everything, that final drive to home, basically.
Now, obviously enough we can't discuss endings, we can't really discuss conclusions, but can you sort of give us an idea whether there's a definitive ending to Darksiders 2, or obviously enough Darksiders 1, we're talking about a Darksiders 2 down the line. Is there sort of like push towards possible sequels? Have you guys a bit more confident now? Yeah, we'll leave this open. We know there's a Darksiders 3 coming out.
Well, I guess we're probably more confident there'll be a Darksiders 3 than we were that there'd be a Darksiders 2 for sure. But the thing, and this happened with Darksiders 2, and, you know, of course we have ideas. Of course it's, you know, everybody has ideas, and you always dream big, and you always think big. But the reality is, like I said, I mean, when you're doing 6 days a week and however many hours a day, it's a thought in the back of your head is about all you have time for. So I think the reality is, once it's complete in a box, everybody takes a break, then we'll come back and we'll have a realistic look at what Darksiders 3 will be like.
Look at that whiteboard of ideas you get into this game and go, you know what, we've got the starting block for the third one. Well, just to sort of wrap up, what's been your personal favorite moment, Darksiders 2? Not perhaps like a gameplay moment, but yourselves in terms of development.
You know, the coolest thing about Darksiders 2 is, you know, Darksiders 1 was set on Earth, and people know what Earth looks like. You know, and again, we wanted to set it on apocalyptic Earth, but then after the fact, you realize, man, you know, it's kind of a drab environment, and, you know, and all that stuff. So, and again, this is not a conscious decision, but, you know, Darksiders 2 is not on Earth. It's all in the underworld. But the advantage is no one knows what these places look like. It's like, what does the Abyssal Plain look like? I don't know. You know, how do you meet this guy? How about a flying ship pulled by 2 giant serpents? Yeah, let's do it. So the cool thing is the art team's just been able to cut loose. It's not like, the sky's the limit. You know, you kind of have to have your own internal logic, but it's not like you feel bound by expectations or reality. So, I mean, I think it's just added a lot of energy because the really is the sky's the limit, and there's even a monster in the game that wasn't planned, but during an art session, one of the artists brought in this sketch, and everybody's like, let's figure out how to make this into the game. So, you know, there's a high energy level there because just the creative level's off the charts right now.
Well, imagine that's a case of, like you're saying, if you're having to get from point A to point B and you're trying to work out a logical way, well, you don't even need a logical way. You can go, yeah, like you said, let's make the craziest damn thing. It's our world, it's our universe, we can fit in whatever we want.
Yeah, exactly, and it was just like I say, there's an internal logic. You know what I mean? You have to have some kind. It's not like why did we just go from a volcano to underwater? That doesn't make sense. But it's whatever you feel is cool and makes sense, and just carry from point A to point B, and then that's it. At the end of the day, you know, when you're looking through the art or the thought process of the level design, you don't have to think anymore. Like, does this make sense, or will this confuse the players? You can just say like, is this cool? And when you say yeah, go forward.
Listen, thanks very much indeed for your time. Really looking forward to playing the final product. Best of luck with it.
All right. Thank you, man.
Cheers.